and welcome. I'm Millicent Walker. Tonight, for the third time, Inspector General of Police shuns Senate invitation to appear before it. Senate declares police chief as enemy of democracy, as IGP says Senate's action is deliberate blackmail. APC crisis takes a turn as new PDP bloc gives party leadership a 7-day ultimatum to address alleged marginalization of members. Federal government orders increased surveillance and screening at Nigeria's borders to prevent Ebola spread into the country. And North Korea frees 3 U.S. citizens from prison ahead of a historic meeting between President Donald Trump and the country's leader, Kim Jong-un.
On Business News tonight, Nigeria's Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, announces government's plan to extend current tax reforms to multinational companies operating in the country.
On sports news, former Manchester United manager Sir Alex Ferguson is out of intensive care as he continues recovery from brain surgery.
And from Abuja, crisis in Nigeria's health sector worsens as the Joint Health Sector Union asks its state and local government chapters to join the industrial action.
We begin tonight with a declaration by the Senate that the Inspector General of Police, Mr. Ibrahim Idris, is an enemy of democracy, unfit to hold any political position, both in Nigeria and abroad. And this is after Mr. Idris, for a third time, refused to appear before the lawmakers to explain what the police is doing about the persistent attacks on communities in Benue, Zamfara and Taraba states. The lawmakers are also concerned about the alleged maltreatment of the senator representing Kogi West, Dina Melaye. Our correspondent Linda Akigwe reports.
A sergeant at arms making his way out of the Senate chamber. He has been asked to usher in the Inspector General of Police, Ibrahim Idris, inside the chamber. But this is an exercise in futility, as it is obvious from the inactivity in the lobby of the National Assembly that the Inspector General of Police did not honor the Senate's invitation.
What is going on today in Nigeria is that democracy is dying in little bits. And it dies when people abuse governmental power. And all that we have seen today with the conduct of the Chief Law Officer of the Federation of Nigeria is nothing but an abuse of power.
If the IG will snub the invitation of the Senate and claim that he has moved to Birnin Gwari in Kaduna State, and when he was there and he could not stop the killings of about 87 people, then it shows that you cannot deceive God, you can only deceive man.
This is the third time the police chief has failed to appear before the Senate. The Inspector General was first summoned to appear on April 26th and then May 2nd, 2018, over the spate of killings across the country and the alleged inhuman treatment of Senator Dino Melaye during his arrest, detention and arraignment by the police. On both occasions, Mr. Idris had sent the Deputy Inspector General of Police Operations, Mr. Habila Joshak, to represent him. The Senate had, however, declined to allow the DIG's representation, instead summoning Mr. Idris to appear on May 9th, 2018.
273.
Stunned by the snub for the third time by the police chief, the Senate goes into a closed-door session to determine the next line of action over what lawmakers say is an insult on the institution of the Senate.
Distinguished colleagues.
Done with the closed-door session, the Senate President announces the resolutions taken.
The Senate therefore view this persistent refusal as a great danger to our democracy. Therefore, the Senate resolved to declare the IGP as an enemy of democracy and not fit to hold any public office within and outside Nigeria.
The leadership of the Senate was also mandated to look into the matter for further necessary action. However, it is not clear what the Senate intends to do to compel the Inspector General of Police to explain what the police is doing to end the killings of Nigerians in Benue, Zamfara, Taraba, and Kaduna states. Linda Akibe, Channels Television News.
Well, the police authorities have responded to the Senate's pronouncement declaring the Inspector General of Police an enemy of democracy. In a statement, the Force's Public Relations Officer, Moshood Jima, describes the Senate's resolution as deliberate blackmail, witch hunting and mischievous. The statement cites Section 215, subsection 1A of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and the Police Act and Regulation Section 309, subsection 1, among others, as affirming that the duties and responsibilities of the IGP can be carried out by a senior officer of the rank of Deputy Inspector General of Police or an Assistant Inspector General with his permission. According to the Force's PRO, it is on this basis that the IGP, who was on an official assignment, delegated the relevant officers to represent him at the Senate summons. It adds that the IGP and the police force will not be deterred by blackmail from any individual or group, no matter how highly placed, from the enforcement of law and order, and that the force owes no apology to any individual or groups in its effort to ensure preservation of law and order. In the meantime, the People's Democratic Party, PDP, has condemned what it terms the repeated snubbing of the Senate by the Inspector General of Police. In a statement signed by its spokesperson, the party describes the police chief's action as a deliberate assault on Nigeria's democratic process and willful denigration of the National Assembly, which should be reprimanded by President Muhammadu Bwala. It adds, quote, "It is instructive to state that never in our democratic history as a people and a nation has a service chief or an Inspector General of Police treated the National Assembly with as much dishonor and disdain like the current IGP. We invite Nigerians to note that totalitarianism does not begin in a day. It starts from a deliberate disrespect to statutes, laws and institutions that engender democracy and rule of law," end of quote. The party asked the lawmakers in the upper chamber to protect the legislature and the nation's democracy by going beyond finding Mr. Ibrahim Idris as unfit to hold public office. The PDP wants the Senate to use its legislative instruments and powers to restore the respect and dignity which Nigerians and the 1999 Constitution bestows on them. But since the beginning of the 8th Assembly, the relationship between the federal executive and legislature has been frosty. In this next report, our political correspondent Shewo Kibaloye reviews some of the events that have called attention to the powers of the parliament in recent times.
It was a stormy start. The 8th Assembly did not have a smooth beginning. Politics took the best of the revered National Assembly. That spelled doom, and the collision course began in earnest. Top members of the executive are summoned, some blatantly refusing to show up. The case in point was that of the former secretary to the government of the Federation, Mr. Babache Lawal, who was then being investigated over the funds relating to the Northeast development. The controversy over the customs boss was heated. The lawmakers insisting he must appear before them in uniform. It appeared like a drama at first, but perhaps ended like a theater of the absurd.
This situation should remain as it is.
When it came to the confirmation of the boss of the Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, Mr. Ibrahim Magu, that only also intensified the already heated relationship between the executive and the legislature. Mr. Magu, on a repeated appearance, was refused confirmation. That the executive was not happy about. The legislature stood its ground, while the executive remained adamant. The man still occupies the office in an acting capacity. On several occasions at their plenary, lawmakers showed displeasure on some issues on the state of the nation, and some on relevant people, in some cases, causes a stir. When the chairman of the Presidential Committee Against Corruption, Professor Asa Sagi, was summoned over a statement against the parliament, the senior advocate of Nigeria simply told them they don't have powers to summon him and threatened to sue the legislature. The executive arm of government will perhaps be on the spot on this recent development. Shewo Kibaloye, Channels Television News.
And to take a further look at this issue, I'm now being joined live from our Abuja studios by legal practitioner, Mr. Daniel Bwala. Many thanks for joining us on the news at 10. What is the implication of what is playing out between the police boss and the Senate?
Well, thank you for having me. Let me start by saying that the Senate does not have the legal or constitutional powers to declare someone as an enemy of democracy in Nigeria and outside Nigeria. Only the court of law can make such declaration. However, the Senate, exercising her powers, can order for the arrest of the Inspector General of Police if he fails to appear, because Senate plenary session is like court proceedings. And the Senate, for the record, have the powers to order to summon any citizen of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, public or private, if the cause on the purpose for which they are summoning him is one that affects public policy, national economy, and national security situation, which was the same thing that happened in the United States when Mark Zuckerberg was summoned by the Senate to explain matters regarding privacy of the citizens of the U.S. Who use the Facebook. Now, but regarding this matter, let me state that the Senate, acting under their powers of investigation, can order the Inspector General of Police to appear. Had it been the Senate asked the Inspector General to appear and explain the spate of killings without more, he would have no reason whatsoever not to show up. And if he fails to do that, they can order for his arrest. But when they also said that he should also come and explain the situation of Dino Melaye, at that point, they mixed everything up and they played into his hands, giving him opportunity to fail to appear, because there is a distinction between the Senate as an institution and senators as private citizens. For example, the sitting over the budget for over 6 months without passage may be classified as legislative crime, but you cannot prosecute the Senate as an institution. However, a senator can be prosecuted for a crime. And in this case, Senator Dino Melaye was arrested by the police and charged to court. So he has been charged to another arm of the government. What the Senate ought to do in the circumstance will be to get lawyers that will go and make a case for Dino Melaye in the court of law. So for them to go beyond what has already been submitted to the court and order the Inspector General of Police, it means they are becoming judge in their own case. And by that, they are also abusing another institution of the government. And it is at that point that I felt that the Senate got it wrong.
Mr. Bwala, some people have argued that with regards to the Senator Dino Melaye in hospital, that, you know, asking him, the IGP, to appear before them it wouldn't affect prosecuting him in any way. But let's also get your thoughts on the IGP's response, saying that he sent representatives with the extant laws, the Constitution and the Police Act.
That law cited by the Forced Relations is inapplicable. It has no consequence whatsoever. The Senate can summon the Inspector General of Police and, in fact, any officer of the government of the Federation. And this same National Assembly have, in the past, summoned the Chief of the Director General of DSS, the Chairman of Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, and other service chiefs, and they have appeared. Why should the Inspector General of Police fail to appear and send someone from his office? That act of sending someone instead of appearing in person without prejudice is a slap on the face of democracy.
Mr. Bwala, finally, because we're running out of time, Mr. Bwala, what option do you think is left for lawmakers to ensure the authority of the second arm of government is not taken for granted, as you put it, a slap on their face?
Right. So what I would encourage is for the three arms of the government to cooperate. In this circumstance, what the Senate needs to do, it seems from all the summons, it seems their concern primarily is Dino. Because from the videos I watched today, they spent more than 70% of the time talking about Dino. What they need to do is to hire lawyers in addition to Dino's private lawyers. Let them go to court and argue Dino's matter. Then let them face matters of national security and development, which is the passage of the law and many other things that are important. I believe if they do that, we will see them as Senate of focus and not Senate that is distracted by mundane things.
All right. Mr. Daniel Bwala, a legal practitioner, many thanks for joining us from our Abuja studios.
My pleasure.
And part two after the break. New PDP bloc in APC issues ultimatum to the party leadership to address its grievances. Please stay with us.